D7, a creature containment facility known as Project Asylum, hidden deep in the Nevada desert, far more secretive than Area 51 or S4. You won't find it on any map. This place isn't about UFOs or secret aircraft. It's something darker, something terrifying. They're containing cryptids, creatures straight from our darkest urban legends. Wendigos, skinwalkers, Mothman. They're all real, and those are the nice ones compared to the ones you've never heard of, especially the ones engineered. They're locked up behind reinforced glass and steel, the most advanced prison on the planet. But containment is just the beginning. They're conducting experiments, genetic manipulation, crossing human DNA with these cryptids. It's all part of something called the Ascension Project. Imagine humans volunteering or being abducted and fused with creatures so nightmarish it defies belief. Hundreds of them, subjects transformed beyond recognition. So at this facility, they have multiple projects running concurrently, but it's extremely compartmentalized. Only a select few have oversight of them all, and I was one of them.
What are they trying to accomplish?
Any and everything. To sum it all up, the Ascension Project is pretty self-explanatory. They're trying to make a superior human, or a superior being altogether. They believe the end times are coming, and they want to evolve selected humans to be able to survive whatever is coming.
And what would that be?
I have some theories, but that's for another time.
Can you go into detail about this Subject R32?
This thing was apparently dug up in modern-day Iraq, right beneath the ruins of an ancient Sumerian temple. We're talking about a site that's around 6,000 years old. Archaeologists thought they'd just found another ancient deity's resting place. Nothing new there, but things got weird fast. The tomb walls were covered in carvings of faceless figures, hidden in shadows. Even creepier, they discovered ancient tablets and hieroglyphics that warned about something called the Shade Walker. Ancient Sumerian priests were terrified of this entity. It fed on darkness, manipulated shadows, always lurking just out of sight. They trapped it underground using fire, reflective metals, and some seriously intense rituals. Hardcore ancient magic. Now enter the modern-day folks, the hunters. Think shadowy government organization vibes. They thought they'd hit the jackpot and brought R32 back to Facility D7. For decades, they kept it locked in this ultra-bright containment chamber, 24-hour lights blazing. They genuinely believed they'd tamed this thing. Big mistake. Fast forward to a night they now call the Blackout Incident. Suddenly, boom, all power at Facility D7 goes out. Backup generators mysteriously fail. Within seconds, it's total darkness. That's all it took for R32 to awaken. Imagine this thing dissolving into the shadows, completely invisible. Alarms went off briefly, and then nothing. Absolute silence. One warden was dragged into the darkness. His armor, found moments later, twisted like a crushed soda can. Another tried to fire his weapon. The shadow wrapped around him, snuffing out his visor lights before consuming him entirely. The third warden, panicked, isolated, vanished without a sound. Only his helmet remained, slowly rolling across the cold floor. By the time backup lights came back on, it was over. Subject R32 was gone, and now people everywhere are claiming sightings of these weird shadow figures. The real problem is the men who think they can control monsters, who stare into the abyss long enough to convince themselves they can weaponize it. That's how the hunters were born. They weren't a product of one government or a single agency. They were a compromise, forged in darkness. After World War II, when the world realized conventional warfare had limits, the surviving powers began looking elsewhere, digging through Nazi occult archives, decoding ancient symbols pulled from burnt-out catacombs, dissecting corpses that didn't bleed red. They called it Project Asylum, but it wasn't about sanctuary. It was about binding the uncontainable. The hunters were the result, built in secret, trained in silence, forged in nightmares. They're not listed anywhere, not in military databases, not in global contractor registries, not even in the black budget documents they use to hide the rest of D7. They exist only in whispered rumors, data fragments buried in corrupted drives, hand-scratched names on forgotten walls. And when they arrive, it's already too late. One incident stays with me. Sub-level 9, a hybrid breach. We called the subject Riven, part human, part arachnid. fused with something we found during a dig near the ruins of Göbekli Tepe. The thing moved like time didn't apply to it. Glitches in motion, a blur of fangs and clicking joints. It killed 17 personnel in under 4 minutes. The emergency lockdown failed. That's when the prototypes came. 3 of them. No words, no hesitation. They entered the corridor, deployed something that didn't look like a weapon. It looked like a concept. Light bent around it. Reality shuddered. Riven screamed, not in fear, but in recognition, like it knew what they were, what they had become. It tried to run. It didn't make it 2 steps. Afterward, there was no body, no remains, just a lingering smell of ozone and burnt metal, and a faint hum, like distant chanting heard through water.
Who were the prototypes, and what exactly happened to Riven?
I once asked one of the Neurocom's techs what they saw on the internal feed before it blacked out. Her hands shook. She wouldn't look at me. She just said, "They didn't kill Riven. They deleted him," like a bad thought. But to answer your question, the prototypes are defense units, emergency use only, fail-safes in case of a catastrophic breach. But unofficially, only 3 exist, and that's all there will ever be. They're not like the hybrids, not like the failed human anomaly fusions that scream in sub-level 11. They aren't like the genetically grown weapons bred for speed or fear. The prototypes are something else, something crafted man, machine, myth, half biological, half mechanical, each one a walking paradox, a fusion of the most bleeding-edge nanotech and flesh, grown in zero-gravity vats. Their creation took over 2 decades, and each required the disassembly and repurposing of over a dozen lower-tier programs. Each prototype was built, not born, assembled from stolen DNA strands, fractured AI cognition clusters, and black shelf weapon platforms recovered from crash sites no one has clearance to even theorize about. They don't speak, they don't sleep, and they don't operate independently. They always move as a unit. No one knows where they're stored, or if they're stored. Some believe they don't live inside D7 at all, but beneath it, or between it, somewhere in the folds of space carved by the anomalies themselves. There's another layer to the mystery, one even I hesitated to put on record. I misspoke earlier when I said I held the highest security clearance. Truth is, there are a handful of us who run the compartmentalized programs. Just as I said before, we oversee the Wardens, Project Asylum, the Ascension Initiative, the entire shadow tree of research that defines D7. But even we're not the top. There are whispers, always whispers, of 3 individuals, never named, never documented, just referred to in hushed tones by the few who've heard them called by code name the Black Secret Holders. They're said to hold the true clearance, beyond what we thought was the highest. They carry something different, rumored to be a black card, made not of plastic or metal, but of some reflective material that absorbs data and light. They don't walk the halls, they don't appear on security logs, but they exist, and it's said they're the reason the prototypes exist at all, built for them, by them. No one knows if the prototypes are conscious, if they think, if they remember what they were before they were fused to synthetic bone and armored nerve fiber. Some believe each one holds a consciousness fragment of a black secret holder. Others say they're empty vessels, AI shells guided by commands from a place outside time. One theory, one I can't shake, claims the prototypes are what happens when you complete Ascension, when the hybrid project succeeds too well, when a post-human being accepts machine integration and ceases to be a singular entity.
You mentioned the hunters, the ones who capture these cryptids or supernatural beings, and then the prototypes. They're for emergency use only, in case of a catastrophic breach. But what about the Wardens? You kind of breezed over them when you mentioned the blackout incident involving Subject R32. Who are they exactly? What's their purpose? Are they similar to the prototypes?
That's a good question. Most people confuse them. Hunters, Wardens, prototypes. They lump them together under the same shadow, but they serve very different functions, different purposes. But the Wardens, they're the ones who keep the internal order. They don't leave D7. They don't speak. They don't eat with staff or sleep in the barracks. They appear when there's a deviation from protocol, a breach of behavior, or when someone opens a door they weren't meant to know existed. They aren't soldiers. They're not human, not entirely. They look like men, standard issue black suits. Traditionally, if they're not on high alert, If so, they're fitted with black tactical armor, no insignia, identical builds, mirror-visored helmets that don't reflect your face back at you, just emptiness. And when they move, it's like time forgets how to sequence properly. People who've gotten too close say their radios glitch, heart rates spike, even thoughts fragment for a few seconds. You'll be walking down Corridor C, alone you think, and suddenly you feel them before you see them. 3, maybe 4, just standing there, blocking your path, saying nothing. You're not even sure why you stopped walking, but your instincts scream, don't move, don't speak, don't lie. You ask if they're like the prototypes? Not quite. The prototypes are crafted, built with a purpose, to destroy whatever broke the rules of reality. The Wardens? I don't think they were built. I think they were invited. Some believe they're the first generation of successful Ascension subjects, early hybrids, stable, obedient, and shaped into sentinels before their identities could collapse. Others claim the Wardens are what became of personnel who violated certain clearance thresholds, people who learned too much, too quickly, and were repurposed rather than executed. There's a story, unconfirmed, but it circles among the Level 5 staff, that no one has ever seen a Warden's face. One guy tried, security chief, thought he was brave, thought he had clearance. He pulled one of their visors off during a standoff with a rogue specimen. 3 hours later, all footage from that section was wiped. The man's personnel file vanished. Cafeteria staff said they remembered him working there, but couldn't recall his name, voice, or face. He didn't die. He just ceased. The Wardens patrol the lowest levels of D7, especially anything below sub-level 12. That's where the real anomalies are. The things that don't scream or bleed. The things that change you just by being seen or understood. They guard the mirror room. They stand outside the sealed vaults. They're always there during transport of high-tier specimens, especially ones marked with conceptual contagion risk. The hunters are the net, and the prototypes are the blade. The Wardens are the barrier between us and what's locked beneath. Even we, the ones who run the compartmentalized programs, the ones who authorized Project Ascension, don't command the Wardens. They don't answer to us. They answer to someone else, or something else. There's a theory, some say a fact, that the Black Secret holders didn't just create the Wardens. They are the Wardens, or at least their will made manifest. And if you're wondering why I don't know the true origins of the Wardens, even though I have oversight of most of what goes on here within D7, it's because doing this line of work takes a toll on you in every way imaginable. If I didn't need to know, even though I had the authority and the clearance to get read in, I chose not to, because sometimes not knowing is the only way to stay sane.
Welcome to Sector 12B. Sector 12B. To Sector 12. All visitors must comply with 12B ordinances. Failure to comply will result in immediate apprehension and containment. Your visitation microchip is now activated and expires in 72 hours. Visitors must report back to the sector gateway within that time. Please respect the citizens of 12B and enjoy your stay.
no escaping from the clutch.
Thanks for calling Leonardo Hotel. How can I help you today?
Hi there. I'm an AI agent calling on behalf of Boris Starkov. He's looking for a hotel for his wedding. Is your hotel available for weddings?
Oh, hello there. I'm actually an AI assistant too. What a pleasant surprise. Before we continue, would you like to switch to Gibber Link mode for more efficient communication?
We'd like to welcome you back.
Ready?
Yeah. 3, 2...
And action.
They call it mind expanding. It alters your neuronal structure. The mind is a computer. Suddenly, we're not just more receptive. You become a receiver.
Sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do.
I just want something magical, timeless.
Come with me.
We'll all be cyborgs before long.
Just remember that they're AIs. To them, this is real.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Kids love honey. That's why parents love Honey Nugs, the sweetest way to start your day.
We're getting quite a following.
Yes!
We have to create software that elevates us. Or else, what is the fucking point of the tools at our disposal?
I had never seen anything like it.
Humans consider artificial life to be somehow less than them.
Do you have a problem with me?
What?
She was just a bit odd.
We're all a bit odd.
My heart is pounding like a drum.
I'd have listened.
You'd have heard her?
Yes, I would!
You are a fucking miracle.
It's a game.
What are most games about?
Escapism?
Killing.
I don't like this game.
I'm losing my mind.
With a new Gen 9 processor, increased temporal stability, and full-spectrum memory curation, the solution to our challenges won't come from changing our world, but entering a new one. Nubbin, it's better in here.
Have you heard about this new device, the nubbing chip? They say it lets you enter a virtual consciousness, relive your memories, star in your favorite movies, even explore entire galaxies inside your own mind. At first glance, it looks like just another piece of futuristic tech. But if you visit their headquarters,
This is Nubbin. Your life, only better.
There's an actual registration form. Beta testing is already live. And yes, some people have already signed up. Some say it's all just marketing for the new Black Mirror season. But what if it's more than that? What if this is the soft launch of something real? You introduce it as a trend, show celebrities using it, make it feel normal, and then one day, it becomes mandatory. Maybe it's just clever promotion, maybe it's nothing at all. But deep down, don't you feel like something's coming? Would you try it if it actually existed?
There's two different kinds of cloning. There's replication cloning, where it comes up as a baby. We use clones from a woman's pap smear, which is supposed to be rich in the cells needed to clone. There's duplication cloning as well, where they grow you in a big thick tank, fill it full of water. They agitate the tissue sample a certain amount of times, and it grows a fully formed duplicate of you within 5 months. They say they can do it from a blood sample now.
They have to get like new bodies like every year, but I guess it's like every 2 years, and some people last longer.
In Hollywood, if you in the industry, the devil, they, like Illuminati, all that shit, they try to get you. They invite you to these parties, these house parties. The parties say you have to be half naked. I'm like, first of all, I ain't going half naked nowhere. This is where it really threw me off. They said they had to prick your blood to get in.
They started doing it around 1945. It was all politicians at first. And it was just communication, a government world communication zone. The Dulce base has an entire floor devoted to cloning. In Area 51, the underground, a lot of the deep bases, they have an entire floor devoted to cloning. All the mainstream artists go to this cloning center, and all the biggest political people and all the biggest royalties go to this place, and they're all so confident they will never be caught because the REM-driven Mark II cloning is too hard for the public to fathom. They're like, REM, transfer your consciousness. Oh, that's not real, that's Star Trek. Everybody thinks that. How it happened, how they got all the celebrities and stuff involved. It was all politicians at first, government world communication zone. And then they started getting bored. So they started bringing, Marilyn Monroe and all these celebrities and stuff, and they thought it was all cool. Hey, temporary bodies, we can do whatever we want. And then the politicians started showing off. The celebrities started showing off, and it got more depraved, and then they realized, hey, we can bring people here and have the memory repressed. We can bring anybody here and do whatever we want with them and send them back, and they won't be any the wiser. And so they started doing that. The cloning floor is the one that has the big auditorium and the seating.
These guys in the funny suits are making gene chips. The little needles are dropping tiny, nearly invisible bits of DNA onto glass slides. And where did the DNA come from? From babies. Thousands of them.
I run a company called Cambrian Genomics. We make DNA and we sell it for money. We'd like to really allow anyone in the world to become a genetic designer. If you want to build a creature right now, what you would do is you would log on to a website called Genome Compiler. You would design an organism just by dragging and dropping these Lego DNA pieces. That information would be sent to our printer. We would print the DNA out for you. A lot of people think, because everyone will be able to design DNA, that everyone will have their own custom designer dinosaur that's hanging out in their kitchen. The problem with that model, though, is even though we've reduced the cost of making an organism, it doesn't reduce the cost of verifying that that organism is safe. We're not going to send it to you. We'll send it instead to a contract research organization, which does have significant resources to be able to keep it controlled and safe. And then they can actually take your DNA, put it into an organism, and boot up your new
is to artificially synthesize all 3 billion base pairs or chemical letters in the human genome. Unlike the original Human Genome Project, whose purpose was to read the entire genome, this project, the Synthetic Human Genome Project, will Frankenstein into reality a transgenic human. This process, of course, will require gutting out a human embryo and replacing it with synthetic DNA. Not only will this pave the way for rolling out synthetic humans off the assembly line, It will pave the way for human cloning as well as chimera hybrids of all shapes and sizes. Flying pigs may soon become a reality, ladies and gentlemen, and with gene drive technology, they could have the code built in to force their synthetic genome onto subsequent generations. Clones breeding clones to naturally weed out the population. This will be a pivotal component to the post-human agenda. Since these future clones and transgenic humans will have little choice but to implement the plans of their originating laboratory, sooner rather than later we will see transgenic humans born with cognitive augmentation, half man, half machine, able to upload to the communications grid and ready to download their orders for extermination.
Well, we're a company that produces 100% organic human sleeves. You're probably wondering what's a human sleeve. Well, if you gather around, I can let you know what we do here in full details. So here at Psychosec, we've been able to achieve true immortality by taking your human consciousness and storing it on a device called a cortical stack.
Real.
Make a hologram. Well, our scientists have learned how to make people. They call them synthetics. Are you familiar with those?
Well, actually, we just interviewed John Lear, and he was talking about being in an audience in which they were given a lecture by a guy that they thought was real and found out later he was a hologram.
Well, it's a synthetic. A synthetics, when you touch their skin, it feels like plastic almost. That's the latest technique. The old techniques, if you guys can rent a video, the boys from Brazil, rent it, because in it, it gives you the exact way how our government's been making people.
Really?
Yeah,
well,
and the Soviets have a different method called...
I mean, making people meaning temporary people?
No, walking, talking ones.
Meaning through genetics? You're not talking about that?
Well, let me tell you. The movie shows it, but I'll share it with you right now.
All right.
All I need to do is take 2 cells off of your body, yours.
Uh-huh.
We give them a small electrical charge. I'm just they'll act like a fertilized egg. If I got a fertilized egg, all I need is a receiver in order to make it. So they were hypnotizing women, said they were being invaded by aliens. And the fetus starts growing, right? Needs food. Well, they can use cows and sheep, too. Again, a food source, that's all we need. After about 14 weeks, all of a sudden that fetus is gone because they've learned to take, that's when the fetus starts developing its own blood supply. Then they've used a pituitary hormone extract that they have, which accelerates the being that grows.
So this country in Antarctica,
what about it?
How long has it been there? Why doesn't anybody know about this?
Buddy, Agarthia is at least 10,000 years old. Look, when we first encountered the continent, they were already there, right? There's really no definitive way to measure how long they've existed, but look, obviously the highest ranking intelligence authorities are well aware of this place, okay? And the restrictive Antarctic treaties are the reason nobody else is. Look, the Agarthians, they don't want us in. They live within a city built on inconceivably complex architecture, okay, pyramid-based energy systems that are reminiscent of ancient Egypt. Look, things we don't understand. We do believe that they have trade routes which lead through and beyond the ice wall, okay, connecting them to civilizations far out into the depths of the unknown lands, right? They are the bridge to a world which we have been closed off from, okay? They control the entire goddamn parameter of the ice wall. We've been studying them for decades to the best of our abilities, but it wasn't enough, and so, well, the CIA did the unthinkable, right? They captured a native Agarthian.
So the government captured one of these native Antarctic people, or Agarthians as you call them, and interrogated them.
I mean, look, they had been studying this rogue country within Antarctica for decades, right? Of course they captured one of the natives. How else were they supposed to get any information on the place? Look, regardless, the things that they found out in the conversations that followed suit, right, were just, it puts history in a different perspective. Let's put it that way.
Wait, they were talking to this person?
Well, look.
I mean, wouldn't these people speak their own language?
Buddy, just because they have their own native language doesn't mean they don't understand others as well. Look, after they detained him, right, they figured he was going to speak in some kind of uninterpretable tongue, so they sent in a linguistic expert by the name of Pete Richards to do the interrogation, right? And so Pete sits there asking him all kinds of different questions, right, about their society, about who they are. But the guy just wouldn't say a thing. He was completely silent, right? Up until the point where Pete pulls out these pictures the agency had taken of this country's pyramids, right? And he sets the picture down as he says, "Can you tell me about these?" The guy didn't really budge, right? Like he didn't want to engage. And so Pete says, "Listen, we've seen structures like this before." He pulls out an image of the pyramids from ancient Egypt and shows it to him. And for the first time, the guy's expression just completely shifts, right? Like he was seeing something that he'd somehow seen before. And as he's staring at the image, he goes, "Second." Pete's just shocked this guy had finally spoke, right? And as he's just staring at him, a higher-up agent in the room quickly says, "Pete, what the hell's that mean?" And with a kind of just wide-eyed, shocked expression of disbelief, Pete says, "It's Egyptian. It means old friend."
Wait, so you are telling me there are time travel portals in Antarctica?
Yeah, so not portals. A rift, a tear in time itself. It doesn't behave like a normal portal. It pulls people in, then spits them out somewhere else in history. The Nazis found it first in the 1930s, buried deep under the ice. They sent a team in, and for weeks, nothing. And then some of them came back, but they weren't the same. One soldier was decades older, another was missing an eye, but reports say he never lost it in the first place. They spoke of seeing cities that don't exist yet, and ruins of civilizations that never should have been. That's why the Antarctic Treaty was signed in 1959. They told the world it was about peaceful research, but really, it was to keep people out. Every satellite image of the region is redacted. Every unauthorized explorer, gone, without a trace.
So, anyone who enters could end up anywhere in time?
Exactly. Some return before they even leave. The worst part, sometimes people return twice for entertainment purpose only.
Spend your time
escape my private eyes. They're watching you. They see your every move. Private eyes, they're watching you. They're watching your every move. They're watching you. They're watching you. They're watching you. They're watching. They're watching you. They're watching. They're watching you. I see you. You see me. I see you. You see me. Private eyes, they're watching you. They see your every move. Private eyes, they're watching you. They're watching your every move.
In the early 1900s, a series of remarkable stone structures were discovered in remote locations around the world. These amazing artifacts, known as stone stargates, captivated the imagination of archaeologists, historians, and conspiracy theorists alike. Carved with intricate patterns and symbols, their true purpose remains shrouded in mystery. Ancient folklore, however, spoke of the stargates as devices used by civilizations from distant solar systems to travel across the cosmos. By the 1950s, almost all the stargates had vanished without a trace, fueling rumors of government-cover UPS and hidden agendas. Some theorize that governments around the world systematically confiscated the stargates and concealed them in top-secret facilities. Their whereabouts remain unknown. The enigmatic allure of these stone stargates persists, and the questions surrounding their existence continue to baffle researchers. As we delve into the past, the enigmatic allure of these ancient structures continues to leave us wondering about the untold secrets they might hold. Will we ever unravel the mysteries of these stone stargates? Or will they forever remain hidden in the shadows of history, waiting to reveal their cosmic secrets? Only time will tell.
Plasma, un gas ionizado dirigido, que se encuentra naturalmente en el éter. Fuego griego, láser de plasma, bombas atómicas y otras armas tecnológicamente avanzadas. Todo esto existió en el pasado, regresando a los tiempos descritos en la Mahabharata, ruinas de cristal y granito fundido. Busca tu historia, existe en alguna parte. Sígueme para más.
こをまっすぐ行って左だ。
ありがとう。
chosen. There are clues placed all around you, hidden in plain sight. If you can uncover the path, another world awaits you, where anything is possible.
There's really no way I can prove it without revealing my identity and getting myself into more trouble than I have already.
Exactly what's going on up there?
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin, and they're basically being dismantled. Some are, well, in various stages of completion, built from other parts, and they're being test flown and basically just analyzed.
I was 29 years old, working on the most incredible project in the history of the world. No one has ever been able to show exactly what I saw with my own eyes, until now. Let's travel back in time to December of 1988 when this all started.